Here we go. So you should see a little prompt come up. And I think now we've got a good number of people in the room. Thanks again for coming along. We might kick off with the thesis unit. Erin, would you like to tell us a bit about this unit and who it might suit?
Certainly, Susie. I'll just share my screen and get running. Can you see that now? Is that just in
perfectly?
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And I'm here, yes, to run you through the thesis unit. So throughout your thesis year, you will be primarily guided by your academic supervisor. However, throughout this year, I will facilitate 6 face-to-face sessions and am here to assist with any questions you have regarding assessment or the unit. So who am I? I've met some of you, of course, but I'm Erin Richmond. I have an applied research background in freshwater ecology, but I also have previous industry experience too with the Victorian EPA and consulting firms as well. So throughout this year too, your wonderful course director, Susie Ho, will also be on hand to assist as the chief examiner and also with any eligibility requirements or help you may need with enrolment as well. So there are 3 units associated with the research thesis in environment sustainability. So it's typically spread over 2 consecutive semesters, that being ENS5901 and ENS5902. And this is primarily the pathway that most students take and the one that we recommend you take as well. However, you can complete this as a very intensive single semester worth 24 credit points, which is ENS5900. So please get in touch with Susie, who can help you with these choices and ensure that you make the grade eligibility requirements. And you can also touch base on the Moodle homepage, the MES course homepage, and look at the enrolment form under the Part D specialisation pathway section there. So why would you want to choose this unit? So there's certainly some wonderful reasons to complete a research thesis in environment and sustainability. So as I just touched on, it is a formal PhD pathway. So if you have that academic career in mind and you want to go down that path, then this is a perfect stepping stone for you. Otherwise too, you might have other reasons. So you might actually just want to achieve something really significant. So you will become a world leader or a national expert in the thesis topic of your choosing. And I guarantee you that no one will know the ins and outs and nuances of the topic better than you will. You'll wish to challenge and push yourself, and you'll be ready to achieve difficult goals and to do so independently. You might just wish to also discover and learn something new. So perhaps you have a curious mind and you have that push to learn something. So you might just love research too. You also may wish to increase self-improvement and awareness and perhaps prove something to yourself. So this is certainly an opportunity to develop your self-confidence and practice working within a deadline and learn the ability to be self-driven. A thesis will provide you with critical skills which can translate into employability, including communication, problem solving, and independence. And of course, for some, a thesis might seem just like a great fit. So you already know that you want to do research and you really want to quench your thirst for knowledge. So you might already have a topic in mind and you're ready to hit the ground running. Well, research will clearly be perfect for you as well. So some more things to think about. So a thesis is a major academically orientated piece of research in your chosen discipline. You will be guided through this process by an academic supervisor. And as I mentioned, so in the MES, this thesis year is typically spread over 2 consecutive semesters, so that being ENS5901 and ENS5902. The process of researching and writing a thesis is incredibly rewarding and exciting, but at the same time, it can also be quite challenging, and it's certainly by no means an easy year. It can be quite difficult. And these challenges that you may face may make you rethink your line of inquiry. So that original topic idea that you had at the beginning of your thesis year might actually be different to what you end up putting down on paper in your research thesis at the end. Your ability to constructively deal with challenges is dependent on your skill set and what you need to learn to develop these skills. So for example, you might need to develop techniques for interviewing participants, specifically if you're coming from the social sciences. You will also need to master the art of constructing logical and convincing lines of reasoning and supporting them with evidence and communicating them clearly within your written work. All 5 MES streams offer potential for this thesis research. So obviously the MES degree comprises of those 5 distinct streams, being corporate environment, sustainability and management, environment governance, environmental security and international development and environment, and leadership for sustainable development. So your thesis can absolutely come from a social science background or a natural sciences background, whatever your distinct stream has led you through, essentially. And finally,
I might jump in really quickly and say, and also, you know, we have students in the Nexus space, so maybe there's, you know, melding science and social science as well. So I think what Erin's saying is absolutely true. There's, you know, almost any topic can fit this, you know, if you've got the right background. Yeah.
And one thing that's really important to mention is that a thesis does lead to employable skills. So I've mentioned, and we all know the main ones: analysis, reasoning, independent study, motivation. But your thesis is a real life way to put this into meaningful practice. It's the only piece of work that you will almost completely work on your own while at university, with very little guidance to speak of. So that speaks to that real independent study, which is certainly a quality that most employers are looking for during interviews and things like that. So just very briefly to touch on the learning outcomes for the thesis year. So on completion of the unit, you should be able to critically analyze, evaluate and integrate academic literature. You'll be able to formulate effective research questions, conceptualize, design and manage an academic research project, conduct independent and ethical research, applying sound principles, design and appropriate analysis methods, and develop an academically sound and logical argument through correctly analyzing and interpreting and presenting evidence, and demonstrate advanced academic writing skills by producing an academic thesis that might be appropriate for publication in your chosen field. But most importantly, you'll be able to articulate the implications and applications of your research. So you'll notice here that that independence, critical thinking, academic research are sort of some key threads and key outcomes. So these are key components of any academic thesis and research. Of course, as Susie touched on too about that working in the Nexus, we want you to be able to apply the interdisciplinary and specialist knowledge and skills and experiences you've learned from your MES course too, were appropriate to this thesis year as well. So, and a quick snapshot, what does your year look potentially for, like in the realms of assessment? So obviously the assessment amount is worth 100%, with your thesis being the main component of this assessment, worth 90%. So you can refer to Moodle on the MES homepage for more detail on this, but essentially within your first semester, which is ENS5901, you'll touch on 3 milestone requirements, which involve a formal project introduction, and you'll also talk to your supervisor, which will formulate a supervisor project progress report too at the completion of that first semester. You'll also have a formal literature review to complete, which is a smaller truncated version of a literature review that might appear later in your big academic thesis, and this requirement's worth 5%. If we jump into the second semester, which is ENS5902, you'll be required to submit a pre-submission oral presentation, which you'll present to our master's presentation forum. And this gives you the opportunity to present the main findings of your academic thesis in an academic conference style presentation. It'll also be a good opportunity to answer some questions and gain feedback on your research. And finally, you'll submit the big beast at the end of this, your academic thesis, with 90%, which is typically in week 14 at that second semester as well. I'll stress too that throughout the semester, there are tools and people available to help you. You're not completely alone, although you will have your supervisor as your main academic guide. You will also attend 6 face-to-face sessions with myself, Susie, and special guests, which were there to help facilitate and develop specific research skills to assist you in your research journey. So the bigger questions now is, how do you apply if you think this is something you would like to do? So essentially jump on the master's homepage and you can read about the unit a little bit further in the handbook. As I mentioned, most students take ENS5901 and 02 over 2 semesters. Firstly, you'll need to make sure you meet the grade eligibility requirements, which are at 80% for next year. And you'll complete your research proposal in the semester ahead of when you would like to undertake your research. So if you were thinking of potentially starting this in first semester 2021, you'd need to start to get the ball rolling sort of sooner rather than later. You'll then reach out to potential supervisors to set up meetings and send your research proposal through in an email with your CV. And you'll also need to discuss potential projects with potential supervisors in that semester ahead of when you would like to commence. You then complete the application and enrolment form, and it should be signed by your supervisor and the unit coordinator. And you'll take that completed form to student services to be enrolled, or Susie can also help and facilitate this and do this manually for you as well. So just quickly to touch on the research proposal, I'll just briefly run through that. So you can find the template on the master's homepage. It is a research proposal about 1 to 5 pages that you must fill out before you can apply. The research proposal itself will require you to conduct some independent research into literature in your field and start to develop a focus and scope of your proposed research. As I mentioned, the template's available on the homepage. Your proposal should also include a title, an introduction, aim, your questions and objectives, initial methods, and references in the correct APA referencing style. And I have to stress here, it should really be carefully crafted. You'll send this proposal to your potential supervisors within the master's space or beyond, whether this is into industry or other areas outside of Monash. And you'll invite them to meet with you to discuss potential supervisory arrangements. So this proposal is a snapshot into your ability of how you will complete your thesis, essentially. So you want to make sure it's a very well polished and carefully crafted document. So secondly, too, I'll just highlight the enrolment form that you will also need to submit. I'll just briefly run you through what it looks like. Again, it's on the Moodle homepage. So this is it. I won't go into too much detail, but just to show you what it looks like. Essentially, once you have written your research proposal, found and connected with your supervisor, you'll fill this form in, get your supervisor to sign it and take it to Student Services or Susie and begin the enrolment process from there. Not sure if a thesis unit is for you. That's totally okay. A thesis is not for everyone, and I do want to stress that not everybody can do a thesis. There's obviously the MES course offers a great range of alternatives, and I won't run through these at all because you'll hear from our wonderful MES educators after me today. So feel free again, I guess, to arrange a time to chat with Susie if you're unsure about where your final year will take you, or if you wanted to get in touch with me to talk further about a thesis as well. But finally, I guess the questions are where to next. If you think this is for you, start to scope out your different research areas and ideas and where you would like to go. Start to think about your topic might be and who you would like to work with. So start to think about who might be your supervisor, for example. If you're feeling keen, dive into the literature and begin to explore your topic. Even begin to formulate your research question. A big thing to end on here is that supervisors love initiative. So if you can come to a thesis supervisor with a question and sort of some information to show that you've really tried to formulate a research question, they'll absolutely love that initiative. And on that note, I'll leave it there and take any questions.
Yeah, hi, Erin.
Hi, Penny.
Hey, I was wondering, what's the word count for a master's thesis?
So it depends whether you're from the social science or the natural sciences. So a social science thesis is typically a little bit longer than a natural sciences, but it's up to about, Susie, I'm sorry, I'm going to mental blank, 20,000 words, I think, for a social science thesis, 15,000
That's right.
words. Okay.
Because we have spanned so many disciplines in the MES, so we've got people doing like medical projects, engineering, business, social science. You can be informed by your supervisor who will know what's appropriate for the particular discipline. But in general, for physical science or STEM, it tends to, because a lot of it's numbers, it tends to be shorter, so 7,000 to 10,000. And then for more social business where, there's more critical discussion, you're looking at usually between 12 and 20, but there's a bit of a range there.
Yes.
Yeah. And so on that note, I'll just mention the format of the thesis. There's very, typical components to every thesis, but the particular format will depend on your disciplinary area. But it can be whatever you choose. And I love what Erin said about the proposal form. So you can see, that just primes you to take the lead with the project, which is a good first step for what that year will be. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Aaron. I have a quick question.
Tom?
Just wondering what the best method is for identifying potential supervisors, because obviously with this year moving primarily online, I feel like it's been a little bit trickier to narrow out suitable supervisors.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you've had a chance to maybe throughout your MES decided that you'd like to work with someone potentially. You can certainly drop them an email and get in contact that way. The other option is to send Susie or I an email and tell us what where you were thinking of what space you want to go into, and we can help facilitate and introduce you, probably virtually at the moment, to potential supervisors in those spaces as well.
Absolutely. And your specialisation coordinator might be a good person to speak to as well.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the conversations Erin and I tend to help with in those early stages, it tends to be, okay, tell us a little bit about the topic you want to do, tell us a little bit about your skills and your background, and now let's talk about the lens you want to take to it. And that helps inform the supervisors we recommend. So for example, you might say, I'm interested in water and water management. I've done some water science, I've done some policy, and I'll say to you next, are you thinking about doing something in the policy space or in the science space? And that will kind of inform, some of the people will start to say, well, maybe you should have a chat with so-and-so. So if I can put you on the spot, Tom, in general terms, do you know a general area you're interested in?
Yeah, generally, I don't know exactly, obviously, my question yet, but banking and sort of big four banking and focusing on sort of ethical lending, I think.
Okay, fantastic. So maybe Michaela, maybe Jonathan. Anyway, catch up with me and we'll have a bit of a chat. Everyone's
good, Susie,
different. Pleasure. Thanks, Tom.
And we also have a wonderful alumni of thesis students too, that I'm sure would also be more than happy if you sent them an email to ask them some questions too about how they found their thesis year too. They'd also love to connect with you, I'm sure of.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
Any other questions from the team?
Hello.
Hi, Maliat.
Hi, hey Susie, hey Arian. Great to see you guys after so long. I have this question. Basically, the whole thesis is of 24 credits, right? And we are supposed to take 24 credits per semester. So when we're going to go for this thesis, does that mean that we won't have to take the other units? Or
yeah, great question, Maliat. And look, I've had students take the thesis. We've had students take the thesis unit in different formats. So let's have an appointment and map it out for you. If you're taking it as 12 plus 12, you will be taking other units at the same time, perhaps as an international student. Some people prefer to take it as one intensive 24 credit block, which is also possible. Then you just have the one kind of zone to focus on. The only constraint with that is sometimes if you've got data collection, you've got to get it done in it's got to be the right scale and you've got to get it done quickly, whereas 12 plus 12 lets you kind of spread that out and there's a little bit more of a buffer. So it's very personal choice. But yes, if you were taking 12 plus 12 or 5901 and 5902, and you need to study full time, you would probably be taking other units. But there's also the 24 credit intensive.
Okay, thanks.
Pleasure. Let's catch up and have a chat about that. That sounds good. Any more questions? If not, Erin, I've got a question. Would you say the thesis is, and we'll hear about the other units in a sec, but would you say it's for people who want to go really deep on a narrow topic rather than broad?
Yeah, absolutely, Susie. I think if you've got that sort of narrow focus and you really want to hone in on a specific topic, you have an idea in mind, then this is perfect for you. I think if you want to encapsulate that broader space and look across a variety of different fields and areas, this is possibly not the option that you would take. But certainly, if you want that scoped focus and to dive down, I guess, the rabbit hole of research, really, it's perfect.
Yeah. I've got one more question. Do forgive me. Can you tell us about academic writing as a genre? Because it's quite different to other, academic research as a genre. It's quite different to other forms of writing, isn't it?
It very much is. And I guess myself coming from a natural sciences background in ecology, we write quite differently to someone in the social sciences, for example, such as Susan as well. So there's quite a lot of stark differences there. In the academic literature in ecology, we are sort of almost quite definitive and stern in our writing. Everything is backed up by citations. We use a lot of evidence and data, and it's very structured in a way of writing. The other thing too that I might touch on quickly, Susie, is the ability to, I guess, be prepared for some criticism too. In academia, we are always subject to the peer review process too. So your work is always under review or reviewed by someone. So you will always get commentary and feedback. And sometimes it isn't as nice as you would think should be. So you do have, I guess, have to be prepared for some of that occasionally as well.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah. So academic writing styles will differ with disciplines, but sort of academic writing for a thesis or a PhD, or when you're publishing journal articles, it's actually quite a different writing style to some of the other assessments that you'll do. It's quite formal, it's very analytical, it's very rules-based. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm talking too much. Thank you, Erin. That was great. If there are no other questions, but feel free to put them in chat or follow up with Erin afterwards. We might move on to the fabulous Karen with ENS5920. And Karen, I think students also get some research skills in this unit.
They do indeed. I'm very excited about this unit. We run it in first and second semester, and we get, a wide variety of students coming, and it's a great opportunity to dive into some of, at a lower level perhaps than what Erin's talked about, but many of the same sort of research skills can be gained in the subject. So I can run you through a little overview of the program. Would you like me to do that now?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, I'll just share the screen, just a sec. So can you see that? All good?
Fantastic.
Okay. Well, so this is ENS5920, which is called Environment and Sustainability. It's a research project, okay? And I'll just tell you a very little bit about myself. I broadly describe myself as a scholar practitioner, and so I'll be involved in basically supervising the unit for anybody that comes on board to take that, either in first or second semester. And my background or my interests are very much around international development, intercultural learning, humanitarian and resilience programming, and sustainable development. But the unit is very broadly anchored around the Sustainable Development Goals. So, there's a breadth of issues that come up in the unit that I think make it very interesting for everybody. So I think what I might do is just go straight to the learning outcomes so you can see, oops, sorry, I had the wrong slide up. Sorry, that was just a little bit about me. I was having a bit of problems with my computer before, but anyway, it's all sorted now. So I'll be coordinating the unit, and I also teach in the human geography area as well. So just to give you a background. Here are the outcomes for the subject. So it's about analysis, synthesizing the literature, which is something that you would do in the other unit, as Erin just described. But because you're doing it in one semester, it's a lot more, compressed into one semester. So you don't go in as deep and as in depth as what Erin perhaps just described. And part of the challenge, I guess, of the unit is coming up with a really good research question that relates to a broad area that will be around the Sustainable Development Goals, and then thinking about the sorts of methods that you're going to apply to investigate that research question. And you develop a project proposal fairly early in the semester, and that's more, it's not weighted highly in terms of your mark, But the purpose of doing that is to make sure that you're really, going to be on track and doing the right thing. And we sort of work that out early in the piece so you don't, waste your time and that you can get right into it. So you develop a project proposal and then you start to examine and investigate that particular research issue. And then you go through the research practice of after you've done your literature review, finding, good data that you can work with. Usually that's secondary data. And secondary data is data that somebody else has already found. So you're not going out and doing interviews and collecting primary data. The reason for that is because you've only got, well, in reality, it's less than 6 months because the next semester, of course, doesn't start till March and will finish probably in June. So we have to make it doable for you. And that because of that reason, we tend to focus on the collection of data that somebody else has collected. And then you analyse that data and you have a look at the data, think about the theories and practice related things that come from that data, and basically write up your findings. So they're the learning outcomes, but it's more than just the learning outcomes. It's kind of practical as well, because you actually go through all those steps. So just moving on from that, in 2020, these were the sort of broad areas of topics that students were able to go through. So you can see that there's quite a large range of topics that you're able to delve into. And basically you will find that all of these topics are under the Sustainable Development Goals, and you work in a group. So part of this particular unit too is developing a research topic and brainstorming with the other members of your group, which probably consist of about 3 or 4, 5 maybe people. I'm just going to go back for one moment because I forgot to just talk about this, which was I just wanted to talk about who would be attracted to come into this unit. And the unit, I think, is suited to people who might be considering 5901/2, which is a more in-depth research unit, and we were just talking about that. But it's for students that don't necessarily want to spend 12 months undertaking a research unit, and they'd like to know how to conduct research, but perhaps only over 1 semester, not 2 semesters. I think the unit provides for many generic skills too that you can typically use in professional life. So for example, the ability to undertake independent research is something that would most likely come up in your professional life, because you'll need to be able to demonstrate that you can have evidence-based findings and work independently as well as in a group, and it's about problem solving. So I think it's very related to your graduate employability as well. The assessment data doesn't include exams because it's a research project, and it's, as I said, it's conducted over the course of the semester. It's available in semester 1 and 2. So that's another, option, especially in terms of flexibility for students that might just have that 1 semester that they, that they need to find. It's worth 12 points. And as I said, you'll work in a group of 3 to 5 students. So the things that you'll do, the steps are that you'll go through the research design, and you'll ask yourself questions like, what is it that you want to know? Why do you want to know it? Etc., etc. A big component of this unit is finishing the literature review or going through the literature review, which of course is going to inform you further about your research project, and then finding and collecting the data and analysing that data so that you can get to your findings and you come up with a really neat project at the end. Very, very interesting topics that the students are doing this semester. One of the groups is doing Indigenous cultural burning, and they're looking at that issue in the context of the bushfires in Victoria and New South Wales. Interestingly, all of the students that are working on this topic are all international students. So they don't, you know, they haven't grown up with bushfire in Australia, but they're very, very interested in the topic. And they're doing really, really well and, you know, doing some really kind of innovative approaches to the research of this topic. In particular, they're looking at video data to analyse their research questions. So I think next I'll just go through what you could expect in terms of the workshops. It's a subject that you don't have to come to class every week. So it's around every second week. And I think that next semester we'll probably have 6 in-class requirements for you to come to. But this is what it looks like for this semester. So you come to the introduction and you can see that it kind of maps a little bit back to that research process that I just showed you. And then in addition to that, I run a couple of learning sessions for students that want to come to. It's not mandatory, but if you come along, you'll learn additional skills about library searches, presenting projects, and then of course we have consultations on a rolling basis. And over the period of COVID, I've been running meetups on a Sunday evening just so that people can drop in, and if they've got anything they want to ask very informally, that's possible to do too. The good thing about this subject, as I said before, is there's no exams, and this just gives you a snapshot of what we did this semester, which will be somewhat similar for next year. So you'll have to do your research plan and proposal. It's worth 10%, and you do that together as a group. Then you do your literature review, which is around 2,000 words, which is worth 30%. You do that as an individual piece of assessment. Your student presentation, you do an individual presentation that's done online for 5 minutes. And then there's a final research project that's presented at the end in your group. It's 4,000 words. And then we've allocated quite a few points on participation, because you do need to participate not only individually, but actively, you know, within your group. So that's pretty important too. So in terms of what you can expect, there's some short pre-unit activities, and there's post-class learning targets to build your project. Very, very much this unit relies on you working independently and managing your time. And typically you'll be working interculturally with other students in a group, and you'll be working on contemporary issues in environmental sustainability. Just a very, very quick snapshot, just to give you a taster. These were projects that the students completed in the first semester, and I'm not going to show you their whole presentation, but it'll just give you a little bit of an idea of the sorts of things that they're coming up with. So this student was from Bangladesh. He had an excellent, excellent achievement in this subject, and he did the topic of waste to energy. And what he did is he looked at waste to energy in Bangladesh, and he compared what was going on in other environments, but he was very interested in being able to apply his research knowledge when he returns home in Bangladesh. The second student, another international student, looked at biodiversity more broadly, but looked at an invasive species in Botswana, which is the country where he comes from, and he works in protected areas management. So again, he's chosen a topic that's highly practical and relevant to his career and what he does. The third topic, and this was completed by a domestic student who looked at the feed-in tariffs available in Australia and the uptake of small-scale solar. And he looked at what was going on in Adelaide. And the last one that I just share with you was another international student that looked at gender and development and female hygiene. And her focus was on work or on research and knowledge about what was happening in Pakistan in this area. So you can see all these topics are really broad and engaging. And what the students have typically done is they've started with a broad category and they've narrowed that down to find a specific topic that they really want to dive into and find out more. So that's an example, a snapshot of some exemplars. And I guess the last thing that I want to say, and it's a bit along the lines too of what Erin said, is that when you can build your research skills, you can do other things. It's got a very generic employability aspect to it. So you would typically find people that might learn research techniques might end up working as evaluators, maybe, you know, could be in government looking at projects and evaluating them, might be consultants, maybe experts in a very, you know, in a big pond, but the small fish. And then, of course, you can take your research passion further into academic work. And then importantly, by doing this subject, I think you become someone that knows where to find information and what to do with it. And that's a really important professional skill that I think that we, you know, all need to have. So I think that's all from me. Are there any questions?
Karen, if let's have a look at everyone's faces, and I might get you to stop sharing screen. We can see if anyone's got their hands up or they've got a question to yell out. If not, I might ask a question, Karen, and it's a little bit of a cheeky one or unfair one.
Yep.
Which is, so for example, I know in government, in consultancy, in corporate institutions, you'll be, you know, in consultancy, you'll be doing research at some point and writing up a report for the client, for the host. So it is a really applicable skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if we had to really simplify it, could we say that the academic thesis unit Erin was talking about is sort of doing research for other academics, or that's the audience, and then sort of this 5920 unit is sort of doing research for a broader audience,
Yeah,
which might be the...
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment to make, because it does have the academic rigour, the subject, but the students, we talk very much about the scholar practitioner. So that, you know, that crossover between being a scholar and being somebody who practices, and your pick up on the consulting thing was a very good one, because these are practical skills. And, you know, I don't work full time at the university at this point. So I do consulting, and these sorts of techniques are things that I typically do in my consulting work, particularly with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade around, you know, using research techniques and, you know, being able to look at background documentation, but also being able to locate data and, you know, diving into a problem. So it's a very, very, very practical skill, very much so. But it does have an academic element as well.
Yeah, absolutely, all that rigour, and a sort of a broader audience in some way. So for those who've done ENS 5010, would sort of be a little bit like what good old Rob Richards also does, you know, that sort of skill set for a variety of audiences. That's fantastic, Karen. Any other questions?
Karen, I've got a question. Thanks very much for that. I was just wondering the group element of this particular pathway. Do you like how if you've got something that you really want to do other people sort of come on board, or like how do you sort of collaborate and take in some of their interests and formulate you know, something a little bit different? Or
great question, Hugh. How I've seen it unfold is, you know, people tend to come in and, you know, they might have a passion for, let's say, waste management. Someone else comes in, they've got a passion for international development. You know, you can get different interests, absolutely. And then one of the things that we do is they sit down together and we talk about playing to your strengths. So it might be, for example, one of the research projects that students are working on now is on green building. And there's a student that has some very good sound skills around engineering. So they're utilising his interest and also his skills in that area. Whereas one of the other students has a very strong interest in the sort of social aspect of green building. So they're discussing when they design their project, they're discussing how they can basically use everybody's interests and capabilities to the best, to their advantage. And that's really encouraged in the work that they do together as a group. I see a lot of the typical, the forming, the storming, the norming type of thing that you would expect to see in group work. And it's interesting too. And another thing that is really interesting is there are a lot of international students I've found over the last couple of semesters. But that enriches what's going on, because, for example, the group that are looking at green buildings, there's a couple of Chinese students in that group, and they've got a really good knowledge of what's going on China, and they can even get hold of data that might be written in Chinese that, we can't, an Australian student wouldn't be able to read. So you can get a much more nuanced research project from it, I think, which is a good thing.
So there would be a chance that you would sort of go down this path, but no one else was really interested in.
It's possible that could happen. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. I've tended to find that it's been reasonably easy to negotiate and incorporate people's interests into because the sustainable development goals are so multidisciplinary, by nature. That's tended to be quite possible. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Thanks for that.
All right. Unless there are any other queries, we might move on to our final two units. And I'll say as well, the students in 5920 have had a wonderful experience, and, I hear that as well. And now on to another really exciting unit with the fabulous Susan van der Meen up on screen. This is the interdisciplinary industry project. It actually builds a range of skills, including, in my opinion, that consultancy process, which I think is super interesting. Susan, welcome.
Thanks very much, Susie. I'll just start sharing my screen. While I'm doing that, I just wanted to also thank Susie for organising this, because we thought that it would be a great opportunity to ask these questions and to share this information all at once together. So I think it's been a really great, from our perspective at least, as unit coordinators, a really great opportunity. I hope everybody can see that okay. So I set up this short set of slides to, I guess, draw on some of the information that's already available in the handbook, but obviously I want to add what isn't in the handbook as well. So I have assumed that you can go and find the handbook yourself and to read the detailed information that's available, but some of the information that I've got in here does overlap with what the information that's available in the handbook. Sorry, that was a little bit confused. All right, so let's get started. So in terms of ENS5910, it is a group project that works on a real world project, and it works in a consulting model. So in brief, ENS10 helps you to develop professional competencies for working effectively in an applied interdisciplinary context. It also provides opportunities for you to develop solutions for a real world problem collaboratively with an industry partner organisation. And it also provides opportunities to understand and develop consulting skills, like Susie just mentioned. It engages you through working in a team of between 3 to 5 students, and it also supports you through professional skills development workshops on topics such as project management, communication skills, report writing, creative problem solving and decision making, as well as support through an MSDI supervisor. So that's myself as the unit coordinator, and also industry partner meetings. So we don't sort of just let you go and work completely independently, although there is a lot of independent work expected. You do have guidance and check-in throughout the semester. One of the questions that we were asked to talk to was, who would this unit suit? In short, lots of people. There's the topics of the projects, the industry partners that are available are really broad and diverse. We do have a minimum criteria of a 70% WAM and also approval from the unit coordinator, and I'll talk to the application process a bit later. Ideally, enthusiastic and engaged students willing to work on real world problems would be ideal for this project. And from what I've observed being involved with the MES cohort over a number of years, all of the MES students are engaged and enthusiastic and really want to make a difference. So potentially all of you. And it makes you a really great group of students to work with as well. Particularly, I guess it is a group project, so students who are willing and want to work in a team. So you want to be able to and willing to learn from others and learn with others as well. You all come into the unit with limited knowledge of your project, so you need to learn and upskill yourselves about your particular project. It also would suit students who want to develop professional and consultancy skills, and also those who want to influence organisational outcomes. So in past projects, some of the students have presented to senior management organisations or the broader organisational group. And in fact, some of the recommendations have already been applied in terms of website redesign to improve knowledge transfer. And another group of students presented to senior managers to help inform them about the activities of the Office Green team that was newly established in that organisation. So you have the potential to influence not just through your report or your deliverables, but also through presentations and so on. I've listed a whole lot of skills and experiences here. I won't read through them all, but just that they're many and varied. So I guess they broadly fall into the areas of being interdisciplinary, working across disciplines, both within your team as well as the knowledge areas, learning new knowledge about your particular project, learning how to work with an industry partner in a professional sense, being able to set up meetings, help to keep them accountable and also be accountable to them as well, how to communicate with them, how to deal with the knowledge that you're learning and the project work that you're undertaking, working within your team, how to communicate effectively and transparently, how to justify your reasoning and your decision making, consider their constraints as an organisation, consider the constraints of your industry partner contact, general project management skills, systems thinking, the list is almost endless, but not quite. I think quite a few of the students find it at times quite challenging, but also rewarding. So I guess one of the benefits of working in a team is that through the more challenging times, you've got your teammates to draw upon in terms of strength and support. And then you can share the successes and your milestones with your teammates as well. In terms of a summary of the assessment tasks, there's quite a few different assessment tasks and I'll briefly run through them. Assessment task 1 is a project proposal, which is a hurdle requirement. This is normally due in about week 3 of semester, and it's designed to outline set up your objectives and give a bit of background and context for your project. The second assessment task is the literature review, which is an individual assessment task worth 25%, and the literature review topic is decided there are individual topics, but you sort of decide and negotiate who's going to work on which particular part of the topic, your overall project topic, and then you go away and then you research that literature review topic yourself. The midterm review presentation is quite a good milestone where you do a presentation with your industry partner, and then there's an opportunity for a discussion to just check in that everything's going on track, whether any changes need to be made in terms of scope and so on, making sure that everything's lined up and ready to go for the rest of the semester. And this is a group assessment task, but there is an individual component in the rubric. And so 35% of that assessment task is allocated to your individual presentation skills. Assessment task 4 is divided up into 2 parts. The first part is part A, which is a final showcase presentation due in week 12. And once again, that's similar to the midterm review presentation, that it's a group assessment task, but it has an individual component. The part B is the project deliverables, and that is a group assessed task, and that's worth 35% of your overall mark. We say deliverables, it's largely a report, but that term deliverables allows some flexibility to say if the industry partner also wants, say, a spreadsheet or a database developed or some analysis undertaken, that you may have a shorter report due to compensate for that and to balance it out. So you may have a report and some spreadsheets that might be handed over, for example. It allows that flexibility to meet the industry partner requirements. The final assessment task is the reflection, which is an individual assessment task worth 10%. I feel like I've spoken very quickly, but we'll get there. There might be quite a few questions. The application process is has a number of steps in it, let's put it that way. I've got it lined up here so that it's got some tasks outlined, you can see down the left-hand side. And then the dates for semester 1 and semester 2 are put in the 2 right-hand columns. There's a bit of a lead time on the application process for this unit. And that's partly because of the number of steps that are involved, and also because it does take some organisation on my end as well and the industry partners side as well to develop the projects and to make sure that it meets their requirements and meets the university requirements as well. So generally the projects are advertised on the MES Moodle page. I'll make an announcement and put in a short project brief and an overview of each of the projects that we have available. And so that's about 2 or 3 paragraphs for each project. It gives you an idea of what will be involved in the project and the topic that will be investigated. Then the expressions of interest open, and there's a survey which asks you to put in why you're interested in this unit, what sort of skills do you have to offer, and upload a screenshot of your transcript as well in order to meet the WAM requirements. The expressions of interest close for semester 1 in January. I then conduct short interviews. Recently it's been online, and that's just to get a better sense of you and your interests, and to get a bit more of a sense and an understanding of you and what motivates you to take this unit. Once you've been selected into the unit, then I issue a letter of permission, and then you take that to WES or Student Services, which is and they'll enrol you manually in ENS5920. Once you've been enrolled, then I issue more detailed project briefs. So they're 3 to 4 pages in length. The detailed project briefs give more information about the organisational context, the tasks that are required, and the deliverables that will be required, in your industry partner contact name as well. When you've got that more detailed information, then I also ask for your final project preferences. In your expression of interest, I'll ask for the project that you're most interested in working on, so I can get an idea of which projects are most popular, and to get a bit of a sense of that. And with the final project preferences, based on those, that's how I formulate the groups. There's a few different factors that are involved in putting the groups together. I often get asked this question, what goes into forming the groups? So one is I try and match you with your highest project preference. Ideally, we want people to work on projects that they're really interested in. Also, the teams are interdisciplinary. So the part of the reason for this unit is to give you the opportunity to work in an interdisciplinary team, and also so that the project can be considered from the different disciplinary perspectives as well. Some particular projects might have particular skills or knowledge that are really required, so that will be considered. And then also about I also take into consideration things like your specialisation and your professional experience and your other work experience and things like that. So obviously I try and enable you to work on the project of your highest preference, and also just to be aware that sometimes not all of the projects that are initially advertised end up being run. This can be for a number of different reasons. It may be that we have not enough students are particularly interested in that project, or it may be that the industry partner can no longer support the project from their side either. So obviously during COVID, we've had quite a few different changes. Lots of organisations have gone through a lot of different change. So unfortunately, last semester we had a couple of industry partners pull out because of that reason. Obviously, we try not to have that happen and try and work with them and to develop a project that they're really ready to run. But it's just to be aware that this sort of stage of the project formation and the enrolment process and the selection process can be a little bit dynamic and uncertain, despite our best efforts. I wanted to give you a little snapshot on the past industry project partners. You can see that they're quite varied. They range from corporate organisations right through to non-government organisations, as well as government organisations, both at the state and local government level. Yeah, I didn't have much else to say about that, but you can see that they're quite varied. And obviously, as varied as the industry partners are, you can also imagine that the projects that were undertaken were quite varied as well. So things ranged from the projects that were investigated, ranged from knowledge transfer with stakeholder groups to developing a game on improving water literacy skills in high school students, to informing a green office program, looking at a zero emissions strategy for local government, looking at employees' willingness to engage in environmental or corporate sustainability strategies in the organisation as well. And before I finished, I also wanted to just raise that another question that I often get asked is, what's the main difference between this and ENS5930, the internship? So I guess one of the main differences with this and ENS5930 is that as an intern, you work within the organisation, and it's quite similar to being an employee. Whereas with ENS5910, you work as a consultant. So you are in that professional relationship and you work with the industry partner, but you are not sort of in that really close relationship as you would be in an internship. So I guess when you are considering which Part D units to apply for, you may find that both of them offer opportunities to develop your professional skills, but that one of the Part D units may suit you better depending on where you think you need to develop, or where you'd like to develop your professional skills more specifically. So I guess if you've got, would like to find out further information, you can look at the handbook obviously, or you can send me an email. You may also find out that some of your classmates have already undertaken ENS5910 and they're still finishing off their degree. So I'm sure that they'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Fantastic, Susan. Thank you so much. And it's such an exciting unit, you know, to go through that consultancy process with guidance from your good self and other MSDI team members. I think that's great. Are there any questions from the group? If not, I've got one for you, Susan. So when I used to work in consultancy, and Karen might have some insights here too, or Erin, what I find with the consultancy process is often, you know, no matter which consultancy you work in, there's some general skills that you get, which often starts with trying to pin down exactly what the client wants and suggesting what they want and going back and forth. You know, a lot of this, you go through the general consultancy process and therefore build skills that can be applied to a range of consultant kind of roles.
Yes. So I guess in answer to that, we do start with this unit. We do start off with quite a detailed project brief, which has been developed by the industry partner. So ideally, there's not too much uncertainty embedded in that. That said, the project proposal that the students complete as the hurdle requirement is sort of a reverse brief, it can be called, or the student's interpretation of the brief. And that forms a communication tool that when they send that to the industry partner, that it provides an opportunity for the industry partner contact to comment on that and to clarify anything, to make sure that everybody's on the same page from the starting point. Sometimes there can be a little bit of clarification that goes on during the consulting process. And I do ask an expert, a well-experienced consultant come in and spend a session with the students as well. And I do often focus on that. How do you deal with clients who kind of don't really know what they want, or how do you kind of influence them that way? And I also invite a past student as well to come along and speak specifically about their experiences in ENS5910. I think part of the skills that do come out of this that isn't well articulated, particularly through the handbook, or it's difficult to kind of capture, is that position that you go through from maybe starting off as a student at the start of the unit to investigating and becoming really quite knowledgeable about this particular project, and moving from someone who might be directed to almost becoming a leader or an influencer in that client-consultant relationship. So as a consultant, initially you start off as a student, but through your research and your analysis, you become very informed. So it's about informing the client in a clear and justified way and advising them, I guess maybe not a leader so much, but more an expert advisor. And through your deliverables and through your presentations, you can inform them and advise them as an expert about the path that you think that they should take.
That sounds
Does that make
fantastic.
sense?
It does, and it sounds really fantastic. And from what you were saying earlier on, you know, clearly some of those clients have taken on that advice, and the student gets to see the implementation, I suppose, of all that hard work. Yeah,
definitely. I think ideally that's what, you know, we all want to do, don't we? We want to make change and make influence. And that's a best case scenario, seeing it being implemented. But I think if you at least provide them with evidence to build the case for future change, that's also a great outcome as well.
Fantastic. Any questions? Feel free to unmute or pop it in the chat. I think we're all good. There's a lot of information to take on today. But I'm sure, as with Karen and Erin, Susan would invite you to get in touch if you want to learn more, whether that's closer to the semester you want to start, or, you know, you want to feel things out now.
Definitely.
Yeah, thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, now I'm just going to jump into the internship, and hopefully you can see my screen here. And this is going to be a dual presentation with myself, just very quickly giving an insight into the internship, and then the wonderful Sarah Banks from our MPP team giving you a bit more nuance. So I'm going to be brief today because I know we've had some dedicated internship information sessions, but this is a really exciting unit. It's 12 points, like ENS5920 and 10, and you can take it in any semester. So that's semester 1, semester 2, winter, or summer A or summer B. Okay, let's get the slides moving. All right, who would this unit suit? Look, like the other units, there's many different reasons you might take an internship, but I've just given a few points that might help you. So a major motivation for students, or something they really get out of this, is they want to understand a particular work environment. So what's it like to work at the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning? What's it like to work in a big bank? You know, what's the culture? How does it operate? You know, you really immerse yourself in that environment in an internship, even if you're working remotely. We've had some very successful remote internships this semester that Sarah will speak to, is that immersion. And as Susan alluded to, you're very much sort of an employee in the organisation and privy to all the meetings and interactions and team catch-ups that brings. Students also enjoy the opportunity to gain professional experience. So, you know, this is something that you can put on the resume and that speaks to your capacity in a professional work environment. Often you'll be applying technical skills or tools from the course. A lot of students really want to hone their teamwork and communication skills. So for those in the room who maybe haven't had as much work experience as some others, it can be surprising, but actually teamwork, communication, interpersonal skills, they can be really, really important in a lot of work environments, from government to consultancy to corporate environments. And when you hone your ability to do these things well, that can make a big difference to the next job you're going for. Some students also are interested in building networks. So they want to get to know people in the field, learn from them what the roles involved. But you might also be forming informal networks, including, you know, with some of the clients you're liaising with from your host organisation, or with other interns even. Some students have a new or emerging passion for a particular sector, like I might be interested in working for local council, and they use the internship to test it out, to see what it's like, you know, before they go further. And there's quite a lot of students who take the internship, I guess, to boost their confidence, to really prove to themselves, and I promise this will happen for you, that, you know, their knowledge, their skills are valued and valuable in a professional environment. So it's that, you know, that's a little opportunity to further understand your value in that environment. Some students take the unit to gain, through the assessment tasks we have, some professional coaching in negotiating typical workplace issues. Problem solving is part of the job, and the unit team is there to help you navigate through those using the business, sustainability and leadership literature. And others just want to solve problems for society and really apply those theory and skills from work. So you're going to be building a whole range of transferable skills and then some specific skills that might be relevant to your particular internship, your particular sector. So just briefly, here are some learning outcomes from the unit 1 to 6. So you can see that collaboration and communication are a big part of any internship. You will be working with a team on a real problem. Project management, planning are very important. And you'll also be applying some judgment, some technical skills in this new environment. So, you know, getting some confidence that, yeah, you can navigate a new cultural environment. Every workplace has its own culture, can be really confidence boosting. And of course, you'll be applying your knowledge from elsewhere in the course to a real problem. So you'll be working on a real problem. All right, so what does assessment look like? We know you're going to be busy with your partner organisation, producing that major ministerial report, or, you know, rolling out an education campaign, or whatever it might be. And therefore, assessment is very flexible and designed for you to fit in around what you need to do with the hosts. And for that reason, you actually set your own due dates for the various assessment tasks in the internship. This also relates to the fact that businesses, external organisations do not care about the university semester so much. So you're all going to be starting in the internship at different times. And so, you know, you can set your due dates to acknowledge that. And you do that when you first enrol in Moodle, and of course we help you with that. Just to give you a bit of a flavour of what the assessment looks like, and Susan will know this well because she's been involved in the unit in the past. It's a regime with 4 major assessments. The first is a placement brief and work plan. That's where you outline with the host your deliverables, your project duties. You might be working on one project, you might be working on 2 or 3 with the host, and then your personal learning objectives. So there's what the host wants you to do, and then there's some skills or confidence that you personally want to build. And so we ask you to think about that at the start so you can maximise your opportunities to hit not only the host's goals, but your own personal goals. There are a series of reflection tasks where you're going to tell us about challenges you've faced and how your self-directed research has given you the tools to navigate that and how you've come out the other side, and we train you in reflection. And in that vein of reflection, there's a major presentation at the end of semester, which Karen will know all about, which is our oral presentation on one key change. So what major transformation has occurred for you? It could be philosophical, it could be confidence, it's going to be very personal. We'd like you to talk about a big change that's happened for you. And then there's a major report at the very end, which encapsulates your learnings, your outputs, and also elements of reflection. All right, so when are all these things due? Well, it depends when you start your internship. So we are flexible. You can see we've outlined the different assessment tasks on this little flow diagram up on screen. And when you come to the unit, what we do is we say, well, your week 1 is when you started the placement, which might be week 6 of the typical semester. And now let's together map out where we're going to space out your brief, your reflections, and the major report at the end. So it's quite flexible to suit your lifestyle and your partner organisation. We've had students overseas, we've had students interstate, we've had students, you know, start 1 or 2 weeks before semester or start at week 6. We've had students take their internships as 1 week, 1 day per week over a long period, or in an intensive, you know, 3-week block. So there's lots of flexibility there to suit you. So I won't run through this because I've done so already, but yes, we kick off with the brief. We go into a reflective cycle. where you actually, you know, learn deeply. And reflection, I love reflection. We'll talk about that a lot when we get into the unit. And then your oral presentation, and then there's a big report at the end. And I'll just say one lovely element of the big report is a self-review and a supervisor review. And so this is a beautiful thing you do at the end of semester, and I promise it'll boost your confidence. It's where you review your own skills and capacities across a range of sustainability and professional skills and different areas. And then the supervisor does the same for you from their own perspective, and you reflect on that. And it's really, really interesting part of the major report. And don't be nervous about it. It's quite eye-opening and revealing and quite positive for students. All right. So just to end, how to apply? Well, step one is to go to the course Moodle Home and the section entitled How to Apply for Part D, and I've put the links in the chat. And then we have two similar but slightly different processes for student source. So that's where you might have an opportunity and would just like us to set that up for you, or faculty matching, which is where we help to partner you with, you know, one of our hundreds of different partners. When you go to how to apply for Part D, you're going to see a link that will take you to the graduate intern website, which is also in the chat. And there you'll see more details on how to apply, including key dates. I'm going to leave it there for now because I think Sarah can give a richer overview of this process. But I'll just leave you with some final thoughts, which is people intern at a whole range of different places, and you know it's a really personal match between your skill set and what the host needs, or what what you're passionate about and what you found. But most students come out of this much more confident and much more aware of their own unique value proposition and ability to deal with complexity in interdisciplinary teams, like we'll all need to in sustainability. And our employers speak extremely highly of MES students, which is really, really nice. This is what the graduate internship page looks like. If you're, just to make sure you're on the right page, if you're clicking my link, this is where you'll find all the details. And of course, this is the unit we're talking about today. And just final food for thought from me, something that's often quite surprising for students who maybe haven't worked that much before is, what do employers actually want to see? So sometimes you might feel they really want those technical skills. You can use this particular tool, you can do this particular mathematics, but possibly more important is your initiative, your ability to get along well with the team, your awareness in a cross-cultural, multidisciplinary workplace, and your ability to ask for help. Your employer will not expect you to know everything. They'll just expect you to be enthusiastic, like Susan said, and willing to learn. And you'll definitely be collaborating as you go along. So don't be nervous about that. All right, I might leave that there. I hope that gave a little bit of a flavour. And for the nuts and bolts, Sarah, would you like to share a few things with us?
Thanks so much, Susie, and thanks everybody for allowing me to be part of this session today. It's a great opportunity to tell you a little bit more about the process and some key dates. Thanks to Susie for giving a great overview of the unit. So I'm just going to share my screen and run through a few slides. Just bear with me. There we go. Does that look okay?
Fantastic.
Excellent. All right, thank you. So I'm the team leader for the Will STEM team and work really closely with Susie on this unit. So we really sort of look after the processing and the admin side of the internship. So Susie has already spoken a little bit about what work integrated learning is. So I won't spend too much time on these slides, but I think it's important for you to see what to expect from Will. And a couple of things I want to pick out from this slide. Obviously, it's an opportunity to have this really meaningful placement that's going to help your career progression, and it's related to your course. But the other point here that's really important is that the support. So you've got support from Susie on the academic side, and you've got the support from our team, the Work Integrated Learning team, and your host supervisor. So it's this three-way support throughout the whole placement. And from a Will team perspective, we'll be there to help you through the application process as we assess your application. We'll also make sure that we give a really great induction to you so that you're prepared before you go into that placement. We're going to talk about sort of some of the common challenges you might face at your placement. And I think something that's obviously very topical is the virtual placements that students are doing at the moment, and some of the challenges that we all face in this virtual world. So how to connect with your supervisor in a remote environment, you know, how to build that rapport with your team and work well in a virtual placement. So those are some of the things that we'll support you with throughout the process. And we're obviously always there to support you whilst you're on your placement as well. And we'd love to hear from you. So, you know, let us know how you're doing on your placement. If you need any help at all, it's so important that you reach out and let us know, because if you don't, we don't know. So keep in touch and let us know if you need any support. That's what we're here for. But the last point there as well, it's really important, is you're going to gain, you know, a great understanding of sort of workplace culture and really develop those networks, which is incredibly important. This is a great slide. So all experience is good experience. Some students will know exactly what they want to do. They'll start a placement and think, yep, this is where I see myself. This is perfect for me. Others may do a placement and think, you know, that isn't quite what I'm after now. It's not for me. And both of those responses are really valid, equally valid. You know, this is a time for you to learn about what you like and dislike in a short sort of, with this short opportunity. So getting into a little bit of the detail about the two options which Susie mentioned before. So there's two ways you can go in terms of getting a placement. So Monash sourced or student sourced. So Monash sourced is where you will apply to us and we will look to match you to one of our industry partners that we have already. And we work with lots of different partners. And as Susie said, they love the MES students. So we're very happy for you to apply and match you to those placements. Obviously, placements are competitive and limited. But this is a really great opportunity for you to apply as if this mirrors sort of applying for a job. You know, you're going to apply to us. You will need to go through video interviews and we'll be assessing your application. But we will help you and sort of give you guidance on that and ensure that your resume is the best it can be and present you to industry in that way. So we'll be assessing you on the Monash source side of things. And we will look to find out what your skills and interests are and match those to the needs of the host. So we would ask that if you're applying for those, you know, be open-minded in terms of what we can offer you. Now, on the other side, student sourced. So this is where you really bring your own opportunity to us. So you may have some great contacts already that you could source a placement with. Or perhaps you've got very sort of specific expectations, you know, about what you want from a placement. So this might be the best opportunity. You know what you want, so you sort of source that placement yourself. And our role on that side of things is that Susie will make sure that the placement is appropriate for you. And then we will look at making sure that the placement is compliant and all the OH&S forms, the paperwork side of things. Just to talk a little bit more then about the sort of the differences in terms of applying. This looks complicated, but I guess the message is here, we will help you through the process as well. So I'll run through this, but don't worry too much. This is all on the website as well, and we will be with you at every step. So Monash sourced, option A, you'll hear it referred to quite often. You will need to obtain your course eligibility online, which you just submit online through the website, really straightforward, can take a few days. So just give yourself a few days for that to come back. Once you've received that, you can then apply online. And at that stage, you're then going to upload that eligibility form, you know, your resume, and also answer some proposal questions. And then, as I said before, we will then invite you to a video interview, and we'll be assessing your resume and proposal questions. So again, we'll be helping you, we'll guide you through the process, and we'll help you. And we may also sort of give you advice and tips on how to improve some of the details on your resume. So we're there to really help you with that. And then hopefully we can match you to a fantastic host that we have, and you'll then be interviewed by that host, and hopefully a successful outcome means that we can confirm you at the placement and then go through that enrolment and Moodle access. So that's option A, pretty straightforward. Option B is a little bit different. So this is obviously where you've sourced your own placement. So you're not applying for a placement with other people. This is you saying, here's my placement. What do you think? Is it suitable? So the first step is going to be that you'll complete an online Google form, which Susie will see first. So that she will see it before we do. So you'll complete this form, and it's really details about your placement, you know, your duties, your supervisor, what you're going to gain from this experience. And Susie will be there to make sure that it's an advanced, you know, role. It's not you getting coffees. We want to make sure. Oh, did you want to go, Susie?
Oh yes, I was just laughing. I was just agreeing. Basically, this is just a check for you. We just want to make sure this is going to help you personally in your career. That yeah, you're not doing photocopying, getting coffee. You're working on a real problem and really getting stuck in there. So if we feel this will be beneficial for you, we will, of course, you know, academically approve that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Susie. So, I mean, that normally happens quite quickly. So you'll submit your Google form. Susie will review that and will email you back and hopefully say, yes, that all looks fantastic. And at that point, Susie is also checking your eligibility. So that's another difference. So you don't need to get the online eligibility like you do if you're applying for a Monash source. This one, Susie will also confirm the placement's good to go and that you're eligible too. And at that point, we're alerted. So now we know that you've got this opportunity that's been approved by Susie. We now need you to upload that information and complete a student pack. And the pack is really the formal paperwork around the placement. So the pack includes the compliance forms like the OH&S form. So you'll upload those forms onto the system, and we'll have a copy of the Google form details that you've submitted already. And really the WIL team will be making sure that all of those compliance checks are done so that it's formally approved. That doesn't take very long. And that's it. We're almost then at the same point as the other application process. So we then confirm your placement, invite you to an induction, and then you're enrolled and you get Moodle access at that stage. So I guess the main thing, like I said before, it looks like there's a lot of different steps involved. Don't worry, you know, if you get to a step and you've forgotten to upload something or you can't remember, either email us or we'll let you know. We're not going to let you get through to the end and say, oh, you know, we can't go any further. You didn't submit this paperwork. We'll be helping you and letting you know. We've sort of talked about this already, but we do sometimes get asked, you know, is my placement going to be approved? Or is my student source placement, sorry, going to be approved? So this is the one that you're bringing to us. And as Susie said before, it's really about this meaningful role with valuable work, you know, that includes complex problem solving, and it's going to help you progress or your career progression. That's the most important thing there. So with the dates, I mean, I've put some dates up here, but as Susie said before, you know, there's a lot of flexibility around this. So you can use these dates as a bit of a guide. At the moment, we're actually processing summer applications. And in fact, you know, if you still wanted to apply for summer, you could. The official dates have closed, but it doesn't really matter for you. So if you still wanted to apply for summer, you could absolutely do that. Just drop us an email. But at the moment, applications are open for semester 1. Monash sourced close earlier than student sourced because we need more time to assess your application and then figure out who we're going to match you to. So I think the key message from us though really is apply as soon as possible. It really helps us to know who's applying, because if you want a Monash source placement, we can get a really good sense of your skills and interests and then be thinking about who would be the best match for you. So the more time you give us, hopefully the best match we can give you as well. And with students sourced, you know, it's really sort of for you thinking about your own opportunities. You want to start that process as early as possible, because having those conversations with hosts or potential hosts, it could take a few conversations. You might get the odd knockback. You might have to try a few different opportunities. So start thinking about that process or that side of the process as early as possible. But as I said, we're completely flexible with Susie with the dates. Do ask if you're unsure about anything in regards to dates. All right, well, that's sort of, I've given a bit of an overview of the details around it, so hopefully that's been helpful. Welcome any questions and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That's so useful. And I should mention, you know, Sarah and the WIL team, but especially Erin and I kind of all work as a bit of a group on this particular unit. So you've got a little bit of a team behind you. Were there any questions about the internship process?
I have a question, Susie, if that's okay.
Please.
Sorry, I've been looking for work related to my studies. So if I found a job and started that maybe like January, February, could the start of that job be counted as the placement or part of that work, or should it be separate?
Oh, I love that question, Sasha. And look, this happens quite a bit. And I think, you know, because we have such a wonderful team and people are, you know, finding wonderful jobs, which we love. Yes, typically we can accommodate something like that. So what you might do is reach out to us to have a bit of a chat. What we typically do is say, well, what could we do as an internship within your normal job that is a bit special? And we use this as an opportunity to say to you, okay, what would you really like to do on the job that you think will extend you? A really special little project, you know, that's maybe one day a week in concert with your other work. And we use that to leverage, you know, an experience within your current job that extends you, that is something that's all yours. And usually that works very well. So definitely is the short answer. We've had that work quite nicely before, haven't we, Sarah and Erin?
Absolutely, yeah, very keen to and happy to consider that for you.
Yeah, yeah. But our tips would be, think about what exciting thing you'd like to use this opportunity to push your boss to let you do. That's an extra benefit for you. Any other questions from the group? Yeah, Susan likes that plan. Well, I've got a question for you, Sarah, which I already know the answer to, but might help others. So sometimes a student really wants to do a student source placement and find that position themselves. Is it more typical that the student finds that placement through one-on-one contacts, through engagement, or say formal internship projects that we see in some of the big organisations, right?
Yeah, gosh, it could be a range of ways, couldn't it, that you could source your own placement. And I think there was a point already mentioned as well at the beginning to obviously ask us as well, you know, ask us as a team if we've got contacts that we can point you in the right direction of. You know, Erin and Susie will certainly do, and we do too. So we can give you some tips on that. But, you know, think about your current networks at the moment. Are you working at the moment? Do they have contacts? Consider LinkedIn. You know, I don't know if many of you would have LinkedIn profiles, but that's a fantastic way to connect with people. So it's really great to start thinking about that early on, and please we'd encourage you to sort of reach out to us directly at the WIL team. If you want any tips or specific sort of ideas, we'd be happy to help.
Absolutely. And like with all the other units, the MES alumni are fantastic. So, you know, if you saw a talk from a past intern, you liked the sound of that, get in touch with them. Similarly, you can just sort of search for Master of Environment Sustainability in LinkedIn and link into people's experiences there. Sarah's just put the email address to Will Science there if you want to get in contact. And Sarah, we've got a bit of a query here, which I also know the answer to, but maybe I'll pose it to you. From Kylie, do opportunities differ between international and domestic students?
In the sense of, in terms of applying, I wonder if that means, no difference at all. So I think if that's what you're asking, so no problems. And we are, you know, we do have students actually doing virtual placements overseas. So contacts from home countries are really helpful too in terms of student sourced applications, but absolutely no difference at all in terms of applying.
Absolutely. And look, for those of us who are lucky enough to be bilingual, trilingual, you know, to have some experience in different contexts, that's such a strong skill to be bringing in to the work environment. So, you know, I think always look upon that very favourably.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any last questions? Erin?
Quick question.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to know if it happens, like in some cases, that an opportunity of work like appears in the place that you're doing the practice, like the internship, sorry.
Can I just check, sorry, were you asking, you know, is there an opportunity of a job at the end? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like if in some cases it happened with students that they do, I don't know, a good work and
absolutely.
And there is an opportunity there.
Absolutely. And you know, this is a draw card as well for hosts that are looking to seek early talent. So absolutely, there's certainly no guarantees, but we know that this does happen quite often. So this is a fantastic way. This is what we're talking about, building those networks to give you future opportunities. So it certainly does happen. There's no guarantees, but that's certainly a possibility.
And sometimes it happens, but later. So you'll have that wonderful internship experience. Maybe they've got no openings at the time, but when something comes up, well, they might think of you. So yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, thanks.
Brilliant. Well, there are no more burning questions. I realise we've gone way over time. So I would just like to thank you all so much for coming. But most of all, I'd like to thank Erin, Karen, Susan and Sarah for their wonderful presentations. And we hope that helped everyone. Don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you all too, the students.
Isn't it? A lovely bunch in this room.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, you were all tremendous. Thank you so much.